Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the opposition is considering legal action against the Comelec following the removal of campaign materials inside private properties. The poll body is looking to relax its rules for in-person campaigns, including a face shield mandate. Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez joins us live. And later, survey firm Pulse Asia is ready to defend its surveys after senatorial candidate Antonio Trillanes flagged alleged flaws in its survey methodology. Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes also joins us later in the program. Supporters of the Leni Robredo-Kiko Pangilinan tandem are proposing what they call the illegal dismantling of campaign materials inside private properties. Veteran election lawyer Romulo Macalintao says they are now studying a possible legal complaint to set the issue straight. UP law groups earlier said unduly restrictive regulations may prove unfair to the electorate and could become a form of censorship when exercised overzealously. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez. Director James, welcome back to the source. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Pinky. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's understand this. Oplan Baklas. So following the guidelines of the IRR, the implementing rules and regulations via Comelec resolution November 2021, under, of course, the Fair Elections Act. Right. One of the provisions there, talks about, I'm going to stick to the size first of the campaign materials, although the IRR has other provisions there. So the guideline sets a 2x3 feet poster size, and there's a bigger one which is 3x8 if it actually involves an upcoming event. Ibig sabihin, kung may rally, pwedeng mas malaki po ito ng 3x8 as long as it is installed or nakadikit po 5 days before the rally and must be taken out 24 days later. Okay.
24 hours.
Sorry, 24 hours after, 1 day later. So, ang nangyari po nung Wednesday, which became quite controversial, Comelec, MMDA, and the police, dismantled posters na sinabi po ninyo lumabag dito sa 2x3. Tama po ba yon?
Tama po yan. That's what happened.
Okay, so that's what happened. Now, the controversy arose because this was also done inside private homes. So tell us, Director James, what is the law that makes this legal according to the Comelec?
Well, as far as the Comelec is concerned, if you see illegal materials, then you have the responsibility to take it down. And outsized posters are illegal as far as the Comelec is concerned. Again, you cited the resolution, and that's where it said very clearly that there's a maximum size for these posters and materials. Now, the thing about entering into private areas, as you adverted to earlier, I think it's been lost in the conversation thus far that we didn't enter those places without consent. In all of those cases that I know of, for example, nagpaalam yung ating Comelec officials. We asked to enter into those areas. We pointed out that the materials that were to be taken down were in violation of the rules. And the property owners either consented to us taking them down or themselves said that they would take them down on their own. So again, as far as yesterday was concerned, I think it should be very clear that we were acting well within the scope of the resolution.
That was actually my next question, Director James. Nung pumasok ho ba yung mga team ng Comelec, nagpaalam ho ba sila? So which you answered, sinasabi nyo, as far as you know, lahat ng pinasukan nilang private property ay nagpaalam sila at pinapasok po sila.
That's right. In fact, we do have documentation of that. Remember, we only conducted baklas operations yesterday in some parts of NCR and in one other region. Again, and we have documentary evidence in both cases where before entering, our officials would actually talk to the people involved.
Opo. So I think Wednesday po ito nag-umpisa, no? Not yesterday. Miyerkules po
Yeah.
ito. Okay.
Wednesday.
So does this mean na kapag meron pong malaking campaign material sa bahay ng isang tao at nagpaalam po yung Comelec na kung pwedeng pumasok dahil you're alleging that this is violative of the rule of the campaign materials. Paano po pag sinabi ng may-ari na hindi ayoko ho kayong papasukin dito? What happens?
It's okay. That's their right. They can refuse entry. What happens in practice is that they are advised of the violation and the next steps that Comelec will take. So, for example, you have a situation where we see large posters on private property or large billboards on private property. We inform the property owner that those materials have to be taken down. If they refuse, then we serve them notice that they need to take them down. And if they remain adamant, then baka magkaroon ng kasuhan.
Dito ho ba papasok yung 3-day notice? Kasi para po sa mga kandidato, may 3-day notice. Doon po sa private individuals, does this 3-day notice also apply if they refuse to take on this alleged oversized campaign materials?
Well, the notice is primarily intended for situations where we don't know who is responsible for the materials. No, I'm sure you're familiar with this line of reasoning when you call a candidate's attention to illegally posted material, the knee-jerk response is always, "I didn't put that up. Someone put that up to get me in trouble." And so the 3-day notice essentially establishes whether it is in fact yours or you're the beneficial owner of it. That you're taking advantage of its existence. And in either case, you have to take it down because it is illegally placed. And that applies to, I guess, not just candidates or political parties, but also to persons displaying them in their private residences or private property.
Yeah, Director James, because if we look into certain provisions, trespassing, and even the Bill of Rights, Article 3 of the Bill of Rights, sasabihin po dito, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, property without due process of law. Section 2 says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures of whatever nature for any purpose shall be inviolable. So unless, of course, may consent, merong search warrant, dun lang ho talaga pwedeng pumasok. To which you're saying, in these instances, meron pong consent. My question to follow up on that is, how does this siguro, is there a contradiction of one way or another between the Bill of Rights, yung pong, tsaka yung freedom of expression, freedom of free speech, to this IRR that forms part of the Fair Elections Act? Ibig sabihin, bahay ko to, pag-aari ko to, poster ko to, ako nagbayad nito, versus this IRR or this 2x3 campaign size that the Comelec is declaring?
Not all rights are absolute, and that includes the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech accepts regulation in the proper instances. As mentioned in the Supreme Court, there's a species of speech that becomes election propaganda and is therefore the valid constitutional subject of regulation. And ito yun, no? Because we are in a campaign season and there is a need to level the playing field, the Supreme Court has ruled that, yes, this is constitutional.
But if we look into the Supreme Court ruling in 2015, which I'm sure you have discussed and looked into, and you know this, yung pong sa Diocese of Bacolod versus Comelec, just to put context into this, yung pong tarpaulin that was put up by Bishop Navarra doon po sa San Sebastian Church sa Bacolod. This is regarding Team Buhay and Team Patay in relation to the RH bill, no? Yung pong tarpaulin na yon ay malaki. So hindi po ito 2x3, 6x10 if I'm not mistaken. Ang ginawa po nila, dumiretso po sila sa Supreme Court. And the ruling was that in the ruling in favor of the Bishop of Bacolod, the SC premised its decision on the theory that election propaganda are protected speech. So ito po ay protected speech. Imposing a maximum size on the tarpaulin would therefore violate the bishop's rights to exercise freedom of expression. So which takes precedence now? Kasi parang sinasabi po, hindi kayo pwedeng mag-impose ng maximum size dahil violative po ito sa exercise of freedom of expression.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from, Pinky. And indeed, the Supreme Court did say that. But the Supreme Court was not as broad as you formulated it just now. The Supreme Court, in fact, made the distinction between advocacies and speech that had for its primary purpose simply endorsing a candidate or simply declaring a vote for a particular candidate. So, dalawa yan, no? On the one hand, you're talking about an advocacy, which is not anything like the posters that you're actually playing now, no? What happened in Bacolod was that there was a poster that was not a campaign poster, but which expressed the opinion of the Roman Catholic Church at that time, at that place. Now, some people were Team Patay and some people were Team Buhay, and therefore their votes would be distributed accordingly. So that's very different from a poster that has nothing on it except a candidate's face or name and simply says, vote for this person, right? So magkaiba yun. And even the Supreme Court recognized that difference. We understand that there's a lot of pushback on this now. And of course, Comelec is open to these discussions and to calibrating the responses. But thus far, no, as of yesterday, as of when we were doing this in Operation Baklas, this was the understanding that we had, that there are two kinds of speech here. Speech that is advocacy-based, which is protected, and regardless of size, it should be protected. And we agree, and speech that is simply, a declarative statement that you should vote for this person, which is election propaganda and therefore the subject of regulation. So yun dun po, it's not necessarily a contradiction, but there is space for these two kinds of speech.
So there is a distinction, basically,
Yes.
is what you're saying. Merong advocacy to which you're saying this. The ruling Diocese of Bacolod versus Comelec focuses on, which was the Team Buhay and Team Patay, versus you're saying speech meaning vote for. So I'll give you an example. If it was a photo of a candidate in a private property, regardless of size, pero wala pong nakasulat na vote for, nakasulat lang po BBM, nakasulat lang po Lenny Robredo, nakasulat lang po Ping Lacson, Isko Moreno, o Manny Pacquiao, is that part of advocacy or would that be part of speech?
But I don't see how that could be an advocacy. That's a simple declaration of support. I support this person, and therefore it falls within the category of campaign materials, and therefore subject to regulation. Again, it is different when you say something like, I am in favor of this and this platform, and therefore I will vote for this and this candidate. That would be a statement of advocacy.
Kunwari sabihin po, Director James, galit ako, kunwari lang to galit ako sa korupsyon. Tapos, kaya pabor ako kay kandidato. Papakita po yung kandidato. Advocacy mo ba yun o speech?
I think that's pretty clear. That's advocacy-based speech. You are using your speech to indicate what you believe in and to spur discussion among people who see it. So, that would be protected, I think.
Protected po yan. Okay, so it looks like what you're saying is there's a bit of a thin line on advocacy and speech. I want to go still further to that that Supreme Court decision. No? It also said that it actually, to regulate the exercise of freedom of expression is confined to franchise holders and candidates. So ibig sabihin, naka-confine po ito, nakatutok lamang ito sa mga kandidato doon po sa SC 2015 ruling, no? Diocese of Bacolod versus Comelec. So to me, as a non-lawyer, it obviously exempts private individuals. Are you saying that even in this line, it still talks about advocacy versus speech?
I would ask you to look at Section 3C of that decision, where the Supreme Court very clearly says that its ruling does not extend only to political parties or candidates, but even to non-candidates. Right? I would flash that part for you if you let me.
Sure.
But Okay. Hang on. It is.
Let's give you, Director James, let's give you some time to do that while I go on a quick break. I hope you get that ready when
Sure.
we come back. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez. Director James, you were saying there is also a provision that we needed to see. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Again, in the context of just simply explaining where we're coming from, I direct your attention to this part of that decision in Diocese of Bacolod, where it says, this does not mean that there cannot be a species of speech by a private citizen which will not amount to an election paraphernalia to be validly regulated by law. Regulation of election paraphernalia, and this is the third paragraph, will still be constitutionally valid if it reaches into speech of a person who are not candidates and who do not speak as members of a political party if they are not candidates, only if what is regulated is declarative speech that taken as a whole has for its principal object the endorsement of a candidate only. Let's jump to the other highlight where the Supreme Court specifically makes it clear that this particular species of speech it's referring to is different from what is being considered in that case, which is, again, as I said, a matter of advocacy. In the final paragraph, it says, this is not the situation, however, in this case, for two reasons. First, as discussed, the principal message in the twin tarpaulins of petitioners, the Team Buhay, Team Patay TARPs, consists of a social advocacy. All right. So these are the words of the Supreme Court itself in that decision.
Right. Okay. I understand that. Thank you for that. But a part of the resolution, please explain this to me as well. Na it ruled that Republic Act 9006 and regulating the posting of campaign materials only applied to candidates and political parties. Here is where I'm getting confused because this means that election propaganda made at the behest of non-candidates, yung gumagawa po ng non-candidates, would no longer be covered by the size restrictions or by any existing regulation under Republic Act 9006. So does this still apply to what you were referring to a while ago as advocacy versus speech?
Well, as far as Comelec has been concerned, again, up to Wednesday last, this has not been an issue for us, right? But again, this is being pointed out now by a lot of people, constitutional experts, for example, election lawyers, and the Comelec is not averse to discussing this. Baka there is room for calibration here. There might be room for clarification. And again, the Comelec is very open to these kinds of discussions.
So while you are open and while there could be a recalibration here, what is the mandate now? Ano po ang utos ngayon sa Comelec team na kasama ang MMDA, police at police? Ipagpapatuloy ho ba ito?
The same as it has always been. If the posters are found outside of private residences, then yes, they will be taken down if they are illegal. And they are illegal if they are out of size and out of place. If they are if they are private structures or private residences, as has always been the case, we do not enter without consent. And if there is consent, then yes, we can take down materials that are improperly placed or improperly sized. Now, as far as private residences or structures are concerned, obviously it's not about place, it's about size. So again, these are the limitations that we've always worked under.
How would you react to certain decisions or opinions, rather, of former Comelec commissioners? That of, let's say, Commissioner Rene Sarmiento, he said that if that's a private property, the right to property, freedom of expression, ito na naman po yun. This is where it all comes in. The freedom of expression and freedom of speech should be taken holistically. That should be protected. That's private property. And that's what the person involved wanted. That was a quote by Sarmiento I saw from Rappler. The Comelec, sabi pa niya, should have been careful.
Yeah, we completely agree. But again, we also believe, at least up to last Wednesday, subject to any recalibration moving forward, the idea was that free speech is not absolute. uh, we keep saying that free speech is not absolute, and in an environment of an election campaign, there is reasonable justification
Okay.
for some
Director
regulation.
James, just very quickly now, because I still have another guest. What about that mural? What is the regulation there? Because I don't see any murals in the IRR. I did not, of the Fair Elections Act. Bakit
That's
po
true.
pati yung
That's true.
mural ay they painted over that?
Right. Hindi yan technically kasama, or at least hindi nabanggit, no, ang murals sa ating resolution. And again, that might be one of the areas we'd have to look again.
So would you say that mali po yung ginawa?
There was consent doon sa ginawa eh. Nagpaalam po yung ating Comelec official na tatanggalin yung mural na yon. And in fact, we do have video of the property owner saying na pwede bang pink na lang ang ilagay nyo, no? So there was consent. And again, ultimately, that's all we have going forward. Na there was consent on this. But again, technically speaking, it is not part of our resolution.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, bakit po nagka-focus dun sa mural kung hindi naman po yun parte ng utos or ng IRR that the Comelec filed with regards to its resolution?
Well,
Wala na naman po nakasulat na mural eh.
I would not say there was a focus on the mural per se. The mural was one of the things encountered during the walkabout, where they saw a lot of illegally posted materials. The mural itself looked like, of course, it acted like a poster, right? The only difference being that the medium was different, and that the medium, again, technically was not mentioned specifically in the resolution. So that could have been it, no? As far as the election officer was concerned, it deserved the same treatment, and so gave it the same treatment, again, subject to the consent of the property owner.
I'm sure there's still so much to talk about this, Director James Jimenez. I hope we can speak to you again as soon as we get more information and other reactions from so many other sectors. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Comelec spokesperson, Director James Jimenez. Thank you, sir. We will be taking a short break. The Source will be right back.